Makes it sound simple, right? That's years of effort, years of practice, and determination, huge determination. But the education did not do it for him.
Would we say that information is important, education is not? Hey, well, hello everyone. Welcome back to another episode here on Creative's Journey podcast. I am your host, A.B. Wright, and right here with me is the co-host, Wolf Howard. How we doing this morning?
Doing quite all right. How are we doing?
Man, I am doing great. I had such an amazing week, a very busy week, and I have no complaints at the end of it all because I looked up yesterday and realized we only had a few days left in the month, and a lot had happened.
So fast.
For Q1 already. So, yes. How was your day? You said yours was pretty busy / hectic as well.
Yeah, it was a wild week. There was a lot of learning happening, aka actively failing. But it's all good stuff because it definitely is going to help me step up my game as I move forward. A lot of action, though, which is good because sometimes I get way too into the thinking, learning phase, and this week has been a lot of just trying it and seeing what happens. So I'm counting any failure as a good thing because it means at least I did something.
You did something. Yeah, that's a fact. That is a good measuring stick for what you're accomplishing or not accomplishing. Is did you learn something from it, and are you able to go and apply that differently in the next round? So that's good. That's good. Anything in particular that you were working on?
There was one, I had a kind of discovery sales call opportunity with what would have been a really good partner for me as far as where I want to go with the business. And I just botched it. It was one of the worst sales calls I've had in a long time. I came in with too much expectation. I came in nervous. So like at the first thing that didn't go well, kind of just started shutting down. I was able to flip it. So like I was able to connect with a couple other people within the organization that hopefully there is still some opportunity there, but it was just one of those moments. Like from the start, I had never spoken to this woman before, more than 30 seconds, and I didn't even introduce myself at the start of the call. I just went straight into talking about the thing I wanted to talk about, and it's like, wow, I really haven't learned, huh? But, you know, I had to have that to nail it into my brain, to remember context and remember that this is about people. It's not about what you want.
Right. Yeah. It's almost like as a YouTuber, meeting people in the YouTube world, especially the automotive YouTube world, and immediately, you know, you have your camera rolling when you first meet them. You know, oftentimes when it's just impromptu, they just happen to be there. That's one thing, but to set up a meeting and you got your camera rolling, you know, I know that there are some creators that will say, you know, hey, have your camera rolling all the time, but you forget about the human factor and the connection that needs to be made. And it's, hey, I don't want my camera rolling to start. Let me just authentically introduce myself to you. Let me know how much of a, you know, either a fan I am of your work, of what you mean to the community, and, you know, what I, you know, hope to be able to do to add value to what you're doing. And that should be the end goal, not just the content itself. So I feel you. I feel you stepping into that one, just gung-ho about making it happen. And yes, the nerves definitely sound like it had a good hold on how that went.
Yeah. What about on your side? Right. What's any nice developments in your week or anything in particular? I know you had a lot going on.
Well, I will definitely say the first thing was finals. I have my film course that I'm in. I'm in school, and this particular course wasn't that difficult. It just was really just watching films from a perspective of an actual producer or a writer or a director. And I think more so, you really had to have the filmmaker's lens on, because you were looking at camera movements, you were listening to sound design, you were looking at set design, and you were looking at emotions that were pulled from you and whether that was intentional based on the type of technique that was used. And what that really does as a filmmaker helps set the precedence or sets a foundation for, hey, if these are the types of emotions that I want the viewer to potentially at least drive them toward the direction of having, you know, that excitement, that see the drama or anticipate the drama, or, you know, critical thinking or sadness or happiness, whatever it is, you know, you have to drive that. And that's the creative side to film, which is the part that I really, really enjoy. So I had finals, and on the first one, on the midterm, I actually had, got an A-. And I was like, oh my gosh, A-. Okay, not bad. It's still an A, because I'm always, you know, I'm definitely striving for A's. And the first go round, I wasn't able to see all the notes, but I finally saw the notes, and it helped me with finals to make that happen, and potentially at least receive, you know, an A again, but hopefully, you know, maybe closer to, you know, it doesn't matter, still hopefully an A, but, you know, percentage wise, hopefully I don't miss the mark on some of those key things that I missed. And some of it was just being able to use the correct cutting terms, because, you know, we'll use cutting terms loosely when we first start YouTube, and I'm just gonna say we as in creators, videographers. A lot of us, at least I found, start using terms loosely, and it's the incorrect term. So I did that, not realizing it in the midterm. So caught that this go round. So hopefully that will give me some of those points back and still get the A. But to answer the question, the finals was definitely one for my educational goals. And as far as just the work week, you know, I was on a high coming off the first episode of this, honestly. You know, that was a huge achievement coming into 2023. You know, again, after, you know, the desire to do it back in 2018, probably 2019 more than 2018. I think 2019 is, once the YouTube channel started, I really realized that, you know, maybe a podcast would be great. I have so much information. I know people with a lot of information, so let's get it out there. But, you know, trying to be a perfectionist and thinking you got to have all this right gear and all these different things instead of just putting it out there, you know, dirty, not the information, but you know what I'm you know what I'm trying to say. It just, you know, it'll come. The well put together, you know, nicely formatted, the whole 9 yards will come. So that was a win. I was glad that the beginning of the year allowed for that to happen. So that was really the accomplishments for my week.
Let's get it. That's fantastic. It's out. We're out here.
We out here. We out here having a date. I just posted on my Instagram. I'm ready for my date with the world.
I like that. Yeah.
Because honestly, you know, especially if you're going live, but in this case, you know, we were, you know, recording, but, you know, when you're putting yourself out there for the world, you're really going on a date. You're really trying to impress upon people that you have valuable information for them. And that's why you're sharing it. I'm glad I'm not nervous though.
Yeah, but then this is a date where everything is recorded. Can you imagine if every date you ever had was recorded? Yeah, you sat down at the table and both of you just turn your cameras on and say, "All right, let's see what you got."
Oh man, you just, I don't know if it was a movie or a show. You just made me think of some kind of movie, I think, where it was a sci-fi type movie, AI related, and based on like an app, or based on how what your makeup was, is how this system matched you with another person to go on.
Was that Ewan McGregor?
What is it? Is it Ewan McGregor?
Is he in that? There are a couple movies that are coming to mind, and I don't have the names of any of them, but I seem to
okay.
recall one where a guy is like,
the name of it.
no, the actor in it.
Okay.
It's like he's going. It's like everything is. You have a perfect recording of everything you've ever experienced, and like there's this organization that's going back and erasing the memories, or like certain memories are getting corrupted or something. That might be a different movie.
It might be a different movie, but it sounds like a good one. I need to watch it.
Yeah, it is a good one. All right. Anyways,
When I remember it, I'll share it. But yeah, I couldn't
do.
imagine going on dates and having them recording and had recorded, and we just pull up phones and be like, says a lot about you.
The real way it's going to go is it's going to be in a little contact lens. We're going to be recording everything on our contact lenses at all times, and we'll have a little HUD in front of us, and we'll have like ads popping up in the middle of the conversation. When she mentions something she likes, they'll be like, "Bye now," and then you can just wink at it, and it'll be at her doorstep by the time the date's over. You know, it's all coming.
Wow, that's crazy. Oh man, that is
Future's
terrible.
wild, man. Future's wild.
That's terrible. Oh
I'm
my
just calling it like I
God.
see it.
The fact that that is the direction we're going in. Oh my God,
Yeah.
that is
Yeah.
scary. That is scary.
Humanity, right? Don't lose the human, people. That's why we're here, because we care about people.
We're trying. I like Louise, her post. She's not in our specific group, but she is part of. She is an owl, and the end of her post, I think it was her post, her carousel. It had on the other end of this is a human being, and I was like, that is the most epic thing I had seen all day. In fact, that was yesterday. I was like, that's the most epic thing I had seen. And I was like, wow. Yeah, because everything, a lot of stuff is AI driven, AI powered. So, man. So what kind of coffee are you drinking? You said you were making some coffee for the show.
Oh, man, this is the Choco Soul Oaxacan coffee bean. This brand is insane. Best coffee I've ever had, and I don't know if part of it is how much I appreciate what I know about the business. It's like it's based out of Toronto, and this guy was an environmental science engineer, went down to Oaxaca, and he was learning, he was trying to install solar panels, like help them create solar energy in a place that just didn't have energy availability. And the short version is essentially he fell in love with this community and created a truly fair trade organization with them, where he's able to help them generate all the energy they need for their farming practices through the sun, just pure solar energy. And then he just takes that back up to Canada and like doesn't do anything crazy with it. He's just, his business is deeply entwined with the community that is actually creating and harvesting the coffee beans. And then he's like adding this educational component about how regenerative practices and alternative energy practices can be spread to a much broader audience than we even realize without taking advantage of people. And I love the brand. I love the brand so much, and it's a killer bag of coffee.
Okay. Well, we're going to talk more about that coffee brand, and because I'm drinking something local that I've got. It's so good I can't remember the name of it. So I just threw it in the Keurig. It has a good Colombian roast, and so I have nothing to pitch to you on that, but it's a decent cup of coffee. But
Choco Soul. That's the name of the one you got to check out, Choco Soul. But please go ahead.
Definitely, send me that link. I'll look them up. But I wanted to ask about the owner. You said, now, is he like was he a science major or engineer or where did he get his education? Where did his background come from on that?
I don't recall if he was doing. I believe he was either doing a master's or a PhD study, and he was an engineering guy. So he wasn't a farmer or a harvester of any kind. He was really focused on alternative energy engineering.
That's good.
And I believe it was part of it was either part of the research study or part of his dissertation that he went into this community in the hopes of building a truly sustainable system through solar energy and farming.
Oh, wow. That's impressive, especially when that's someone that has been able to take their education and follow that track and develop something revolutionary with it. We don't often hear stories where that has happened, where we've taken our education and allowed for that to work with what we want to do. Now, one more thing for him, and just thinking about that, based on your research of him, was that the direction he was going in the moment that he began his studies, or did that just potentially, or did that evolve into that over time?
That's a great question. Actually, I need to talk to this guy. I need to just go up to Toronto and talk to this guy. I am not sure, but from what I understand, he was not intending to start a coffee and chocolate. They do coffee and chocolate. I think chocolate is actually their primary thing that they're focused on. He was not intending to start a farming business when he went down there. I think he was really just looking to do like an immersive community experience within his research. So I believe it was just a very organic development over time. He realized the opportunity and said, wow, I got to do something for these people. Well, with these people. And that's the thing. He doesn't pitch it as like I'm doing it for them. It's not like, oh, poor community. It's like, how do we co-create with communities that have amazing farming practices, that have amazing product is like kind of a vulgar word in my opinion sometimes, but it is product, you know.
That's good. That brings me to, of course, a couple of things. We know what the topic is of the show today, of the episode today. Before I get into that component, the whole reason that this show evolved was because everyone's journey as to how they get there, we hope it ends up being an organic one, in that you decide within yourself what is right for you, and you end up going along that path. Not all times it ends up being exactly what you thought you were about to do, but because you were daring enough to go into what you thought you were about to do, and opportunities opened up, you were able to tap into that opportunity, and then here comes something else birthed from that. But it's all because you decided to believe in yourself enough to start the journey that you felt was right for you to start. And that's good. That's good. And I'm really glad you have said that, quite possibly without having the facts just yet, but quite possibly, you know, your understanding of his journey is that it started one way, but it was what he wanted to do. And then it went to another opportunity, seeking what he was wanting to do turned into another opportunity. So that's great. That is great. Over generations, the educational component has been given such a high value, and it is valuable. Getting the information is valuable, but how you get it is the most interesting part, because I don't feel going to college is the right route for everyone. I'll let you know why I'm saying that is because I was on a call. I was in Grandma's house, her open house, Friday. Amazing event. Oh, I can't wait to do the next one. It was amazing. There's a young lady that's in there that she is on the journey of finishing up her PhD. And of course, the conversation came, you know, what was she going to do with the PhD? At least I asked. You know, was the intention of getting the PhD pertaining to education, meaning becoming a professor? Because we know, much like becoming a doctor, a dentist requires a certain level of training, education. And what comes along with that education is your diploma, the piece of paper that says that you went through the said steps in training to be at this level. So when asking that, you know, I understood what that should be for. And man, that's just having a background in healthcare and understanding that in order to become a pharmacist, a surgeon, an ophthalmologist, an optometrist, physical therapist, any of those requires time getting your education and getting that piece of paper. Because now you've got to get licensed, and there's other steps to that. It's more than just a piece of paper. It's also the other steps that come along with that, being board certified and being, registered with the state and all these different things. So there's a purpose, there's a reason. So when you say you want to be a doctor, then of course we already know there's a track to make that happen. If you want to be a professor, there's a track to make that happen. And the thing is, what happens when you decide to get these degrees, but it's not really what you want? Or the foundation and reasoning for doing it, maybe it's not even a personal check in the box, or maybe a check in the box for your family lineage. I'll tell you right now, I knew I was going to entrepreneurial track when I got out of the military. The reason I got in the military was one of those boxes I wanted to check is have educational benefits. So me pursuing my bachelor's, or let me back up, me attaining my associates while still serving and attaining my bachelor's after I got out, that was part of my goal. And part of my goal had to do with being someone that had finished college, the first one to finish college in my family. There's some history I got to share with all that, because some people that's not going to make sense, some people that will, but there's some parts of my life journey that absolutely make sense. But at the end of the day, to run a business, to be a baseball instructor, to run a business in the sports and entertainment industry, did that require me to have an education, a bachelor's degree, master's, any of that? Hell no. Hell no. So I didn't do it for that. But I did do it because of, wanting to lay that foundation and be the first to say that definitely is possible. But other than that, initially to start, I was just picking something because that was the one that would make some money. And I think you shared something last week going into that, about your direction and going to school and your dad's influence on that. So what is your take on education? And just share your thoughts on it.
It's complicated. We could be here for a long, long time if we're getting deep into it, but that's okay. There's so much in everything you just mentioned. One of the things that I just wanted to touch on briefly before we get into my perspective, the first generation aspect of things is so fascinating to me, because when you're in a family where everybody has an education and then it's like, oh, well, I want to be an entrepreneur, then you're like the crazy black sheep, you're like off. It's like, oh, why aren't you following the trend that everybody else in this successful family has? But then when you come from a family where education is not a given, it's like, you better get this, because this is how you build future success. We've invested all of our energy in bringing you up so you're able to find success and independence, and we don't want to see you fall into the same trap of just being stuck in dead-end jobs for the rest of your life. And that familial aspect is just so interesting. On my mom's side of the family, every one of my cousins has a degree, or is trained in something and has the opportunity. Well, almost all. On my dad's side of the family, we have one cousin that got a PhD, just one. And then we have another cousin that's successful in banking. And then the rest of us were kind of just like, there's a lot of, well, what are you guys doing? Like, what's going on? And it's like, for my dad's side, my one cousin, I love her dearly. Her getting that PhD was like huge for everybody in the family. It's like, you did it. You finally got that doctorate. Whereas on the other side, you could get a PhD and it's like, all right, cool, well done. We all kind of expected that from you. So I just think that's such a fascinating thing about how the context you grow up in can drastically change the way you think about education, qualification, whatever it might be for career development, and what's considered a risk versus what's considered just you being kind of wild, crazy, but everybody's confident you'll figure it out in the end.
Yeah, interesting take, interesting perspective on that.
For me, education, right? I don't think everybody needs a college degree. I think the context we grew up in is very different from the context of today, where now it's obvious you don't need a college degree because you see so many people making so much good money online, where when we were coming up, it was still, you're going to have to qualify for a resume, and every resume was going to say, we need you to have a college degree. Now hiring practices are even changing to where they're saying college degree or 4 years equivalent experience or whatever it is, you know? So I think the shift is starting to take place where people are realizing now that almost everyone has some level of access to college education, it's not really a differentiator anymore. But that also leads me to question, you had mentioned like when you're going through the PhD route, you're getting trained to be a professor, but you're not getting trained to be a good teacher. You're getting trained on whatever narrow focus you have so you can be a good researcher. And then you're expected to go teach. So my experience going through a lot of college courses were people that were very, very good at their narrow range of focus, but so few of them were actually talented educators, and they weren't trained in the ability to communicate information to an audience in a way that they could actually receive it and use it. A lot of the value I got out of college was critical thinking, but it wasn't applicable in a direct way to anything I wanted to do after. So I just think there's so much opportunity for college to change, for the educational standards to change, because we can learn almost anything online now. We can get the skills. So like that qualification is nothing compared to what's your drive and how do you think and how do you relate to people. I had 0 courses that taught me how to be a team leader, a communicator. I had to learn all of that in real time in the real world. Why is that not part of high school education and then college education? Because we could be working together way better if we weren't so focused on A- versus A, and instead we were focused on, did I do well as a communicator? Did I do well as a leader? Did you get the point I meant to make? I'll step off my soapbox for a second there. That was a lot.
No, you're good. You're good. No, that's interesting. As I said, interesting perspective, but that's a very good aspect to share. And you did make mention of the research portion that goes into the PhD. Someone did mention that in the open house as well. And the key point, the education does not teach you the life skills. It doesn't teach you the life skills. And why education doesn't teach you that? They can't. They can't. Life skills is what you get when you go out into the world and take that journey through life. Period. No matter how many times, I'm thinking back to my dad, no matter how many times he tried to save me from doing, making a mistake doing X, Y, or Z, I felt the need to figure it out myself. And the lessons learned, whether I realized it in the moment, a month later, or a year later, I could look back and say, damn, Dad, you were right. You were right, because you had been on the earth long enough to have experienced that, to have seen it happen to someone else. So even now, we share our advices because we've seen it and we've done it. But yeah, the experience piece, we're not going to get that. The skill set, we're not going to get that until we execute and have the failures to learn from, to be able to execute again and be successful the next time, and then we keep going. I'll say this.
But
go ahead.
You're having someone like your dad to say don't do that before you do that, I think helps you learn the lesson faster. If you don't have anybody telling you this is a bad idea, then you don't have that when you go in, like they say the stove is hot, then you touch the stove. Oh, stoves are hot. Well, that's kind of a bad example because hot stoves you should pretty much learn after the first time. But, it's like having that seed planted in your brain about, well, I'm going to do it anyway. Oh, it didn't work out. And he was right. Maybe there's something to that. I think you learn a little faster than just going out, messing up over and over and over again and not having any clue what's going wrong.
Yeah,
just wanted to say that.
You're right. You're right. That it leads us a little bit away from the educational component, and that's okay because it's still the education in the system. I'll take that back. That's part of where I wanted to go with the educational part too, is that the educational part isn't just what you learn in the system, it's what you learn from people, is what you learn from, the information and the education that you get. Like you said, it makes learning it and going through it a lot easier because someone has told you. And that's why we hire coaches. That's why coaching is such an integral part to the entrepreneurial journey. If we're using it correctly, I'll say that. We're trying to fast track getting to the next level by way of the information that is being used. I'll use this example. I'm watching Secrets to Success podcast with E.T. the Hip Hop Preacher. And in their previous episode, he was talking about how he hired this coach to help him get on the New York Times bestsellers list. And it's basically, it's a cheat code, almost like playing a video game, only in the sense of, in the video game, I'm kind of moving past where I was going, but I'm gonna jump to the video game. In old video games, you had warp zones, so you just skip the levels altogether. The other cheat codes would give you extra tools you could use, so you didn't have to work as hard to conquer the boss.
Yep.
And in E.T. the Hip Hop Preacher's lesson shared was that he still had to execute the steps that were given. It just wasn't going to take as long to keep falling down to learn from those mistakes to finally get there. It wasn't going to take writing 10 more books to finally get there versus just understanding from someone that has done it over and over and over again, that has figured out the process, and they've imparted that knowledge on you, of course, by you investing into yourself, into the education, into the lessons learned, and then that fast tracks your ability to do it, but you still got to execute the steps. That's, to me, the most important part of what education should be. We're investing into going, at least the paradigm we're getting away from, is you're investing into going to a university that's hopefully to fast track you to a place because you have the bachelor's, the master's, the PhD, because you learned enough to where you're valued higher. But without the skill set, is there any value?
But $50,000 for a coach is a lot per year.
No,
when you're coming out of high school and you don't even know what you're trying to get coached on. No,
I know, but that leads into everything that we've said. In a sense, that's why I said you're the guy of the coffee brand. He knew going in what he wanted to do, and based on what he was executing at the time, found an opportunity to do something else, but he still went in knowing what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
It's one thing, like you said, I could pay for a coach all day long, but why am I paying for the coach if what they're teaching me isn't what I even need? I haven't done the research to see that they have even done what I'm paying them for. So that's a topic for a whole different day in a sense. But I get what you're saying. Computers wasn't necessarily what I wanted to do. I didn't know what I wanted to do. What is the generic degree path you pick when you in school, the first?
Bachelor's?
No, not the
Oh, you're talking about being fun decided? General studies type thing?
Yeah, general studies. There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. So when
I called it fun decided. I was fun decided for 2 years. I was fun decided, and then they're like, "Hey, you got to pick one." It's like, it's fine if I have to.
Right. But the under, going into college, going into a university, not understanding the financial implications of investing into something that you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're investing into yourself.
Yeah.
And that's what the education is supposed to be for, is to invest into yourself, to give yourself and present yourself as valuable to the employer. That's really what the educational system is for. It's not for them to teach you how to be an entrepreneur. It's not to teach you how to be financial savvy. It's not to teach you how to build wealth. That's not what it's for. So when we recognize that that is not what it is for, if that's what you're wanting to learn, then why are you going to school?
Yeah.
And we know there's other things. You just gave perspective on, a family of generations of scholars, a family, a generation of military officers, a family with generations of CEOs, a family with generations of entrepreneurs versus a family of generations that never went to school. The moment you realize what information you're seeking and how it benefits you, that should determine what route you go to obtain that education.
Yeah, and I'll say, so my dad doesn't have a degree. He actually went into the Navy in order to get the degree, and it ended up, for whatever reason, I don't have the full details of the story, he went in to get a nuclear engineering degree, and when he left, he did not have that degree. But that was, he had decided, I need to get a degree so I don't have to keep on doing stuff I don't want to do. Let me join the Navy. They'll get me the degree, and then I'll be able to build a greater career. Didn't happen that way. Went back to delivery truck driving, and then eventually trained himself on SQL database programming, and that's how he got into the database architecture management job he had, right? And so for me, I was very much expected to go to college. It's, you are going to get this degree. And now with hindsight, I'm realizing, or at least this is how I'm interpreting it. What I see now is that he recognized he needed a degree, and he was going to get his son a degree no matter what, because he wasn't going to put me in the same situation he was in, where he made the decision to join the Navy because that was the only way he saw of building a greater future for himself. So I went to school with no expectation of what I wanted to learn. I was simply expected to go to school. And that's why I'm undecided for 2 years when I get there. I'm just like still in my little 18-year-old brain. Ooh, what do I love? What am I passionate about? I love reading and writing. I love communications, English literature. Can I study that? No, that's not going to get you a job. And then I'm thinking like, okay, what about B school? And then my mom's like, B school, you're way too smart for B school. Why are you going to go to B school? And I'm not saying I think I'm too smart for B school. I think B school can be good, depending on the track you want to take. It wasn't the right thing for me.
What is B school?
Business school. Sorry, business school.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
All that being said, when I got to college, I did not have a sense of where I wanted to go. And that was a huge investment. And I'm very fortunate that my parents actually paid for it. That was a huge investment for them to make without me having any understanding of why I'm there. And then the reason I chose the degrees I did, I was actually a physics and philosophy major to start. I was reading Atlas Shrugged one summer, and it turns out that I think there are three world-changing characters, like there are the three people that can actually make a difference in the arc of history. They studied physics and philosophy in undergraduate, was the way the story went. So I said, that sounds pretty cool. It's nice. Why not? I like physics. I like philosophy. Let's check it out. And that didn't pay off. Like, I'm not a graduate student in physics or philosophy. I'm not studying to do those very theory-based sciences. I'm glad they made the investment in my education. It has paid off over time. But to your point, if you don't know why you're going, I think a lot of people get lost in there, and they kind of say, well, I got to pick something. So now here's my career path, and now I'm going to follow this. And then you get 10 years down the road, and you just finished off paying your student loans, hypothetically. And it's like, well, what was this all for? Was this just so I could get a job to pay off the loans that I took in the first place, having no clue where I wanted my life to go, you know? Yeah.
Interesting thing I heard in your story about your father is all, within that journey, it proved that college itself wasn't the necessary route for him.
Right.
He was chasing school. He got to the Navy to go to school, which again for me was the similar thing. That was one of the things I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. It didn't work out for whatever reason. It didn't. Mm-hmm. He got out to get into an industry or take a job so that he could make sure he could provide for his family, and ultimately realized that in order to really set them up, I've got to generate more revenue. I need to bring in more income. What can I do to make that happen? And then he taught himself through information, whether he paid for it or rented the book from the library, however he got the information and then applied it.
That's all it takes.
That's all it takes. That's all it
makes it sound simple, right? That's years of effort, years of practice, and determination, huge determination. But that is the education did not do it for him. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It is fascinating. It is fascinating.
So would we say, how would we surmise that? Would we say that information is important, education is not?
Well, and to your point about coaches, I don't know about your experience in college, but I had a few professors that ended up being amazing influences on me individually. The courses I was in, not so much, but their way of thinking, their way of approaching the world transformed the way I saw how I could show up. So, I mean, I think ultimately it's who do you surround yourself with and what are you putting into your brain that make the biggest difference? The education could be that depending on the way you want to go. But for everybody, I would say absolutely not. It's not about getting the degree and the credentials. It's about finding the people that excite you and get you to think bigger about where your life can go and who you want to be, what you want to do, how you want to spend your limited time on this earth.
I agree with that. Part of it is probably just figuring out where you're going to get the most value. Do we know where we're going to get the most value? I don't know. In my journey to get my degree, I definitely got some information from that because my mindset going in was from that of an athlete. I just saw the sport as the authentic thing, the sport. When you run a business in the sports and entertainment industry, which is why there's a highlight on entertainment, because it's really family fun. So what do we do to get the butts in the seats, to get them here in the stands? How do we make it fun? What kind of food do we make sure we have? What's the interactions that they have with technology and the mascots and people? You know, what's the value on the entertainment side? So as a entrepreneur, the business aspect began to make sense, and I pulled less from it as being an athlete or from the athletic part or the player development part to see it from the standpoint of a business executive. At the end of the day, it's tough to say. It's tough to say. Even coming into this conversation, I was like, oh, yeah, you know, it is not important. It's easy to take a stand and say it's not or it is. It really just depends on the journey that you took and how you got to where you are. And I'm glad you shared the story about your father, too.
Oh, yeah, appreciate it. Did your university experience, was that close or far away from home?
Close. Are you speaking of recently or the first time?
The first time.
First time was away from home, about 6 hours.
And do you think that part of the experience was valuable to you?
Yeah, I partied.
That's when I reflect, I start to realize like what really mattered was getting me out of my parents' house and being in a completely new place with completely new people and just forcing me out of my comfort zone.
Exactly. You know, of course I got to laugh about the partying part, but in that first semester, the dorms were full. So I ended up in my own apartment. I'm sorry. I ended up in an apartment. I had 2 other roommates and I did not have a car. had a bike. So the independence factor, all of that, bills and stuff wasn't necessarily new to me, but yeah, there was a different dynamic, living with people I didn't know, being at a different place that I didn't really know. Mm-hmm. And yeah, the experience being away from home was definitely good. It was definitely good.
Yeah. To me, I met two of my best friends happened to be my random roommates the first year of college and lifelong friends. They're two of my favorite people on this planet. You can't put a price tag on that. Wouldn't have met them if I hadn't gone to college. And those are the kinds of things you really can't plan for, right? So it's like maybe as a question of just kind of an existential question about does education matter, maybe what we need when we're 18 is to just leave the nest in whatever way, shape, or form, put ourselves into a new place where we have to take care of ourselves, where we have to think for ourselves, and we have to reform the connections that aren't based on where we happen to be born, but who we actually want to associate with. That, I think, is where the real value is as an 18, 19-year-old, and then the rest of it comes later. And that's where you can actually make an informed decision. Do I want to get an education because I've been out in the world, I've seen what's more than just my hometown, and now I can kind of say, oh, okay, that engineering thing, I'm really into that, or whatever it might be.
Right. Yeah. I agree. I agree. It's hard for me to disagree with you, Wolf. So if all the time you hear me saying I agree, is because your perspective is genuine and is well thought out, and it's a well played hand. So I can't disagree with what you're saying, because I value what you're saying, because it's a wholesome, genuine perspective.
I appreciate it.
That's good. Good stuff.
I've been told I should be a lawyer a lot, many, many times. They're like, oh, you really know how to put an argument together. But I think it's also just we genuinely seem to share values. We share perspective on what's important in the world. So I think it might be hard for us to disagree on a lot of things. We can disagree on maybe details, but I get the sense that we have a very aligned view of what is good and excellent in the world, and what are the things we need to avoid or try and fix up. But plenty more conversations to be had. Maybe we can find some arguments in here.
Well, I'm always down for a good conversation, and anything that is going to help someone on their journey make sense of it, really. Help them make sense of it. It may or may not make it easier, but at least help them make sense of it.
It's never going to be easy, right?
Yeah. Got to put in the work. No warp zones here.
Nope.
No warp zones here. Well, man, I think that's our time. I think in your words and the words of Chris Doe, it's time to land the plane. We got to find our own one.
Yeah, we're still building the plane. We can't really land it, but maybe we can give it, like, I don't know.
A touch and go?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we're going to touch, then go in the next episode. So, hey, there we go.
There we go.
Oh, man. I appreciate it, Wolf. I appreciate it. What are your plans moving into next week? Anything?
Keep failing.
Fair enough.
Got a lot of stuff to experiment with, and we're going to keep on breaking the machine and figuring out how to make it run better. I appreciate you as well. Always an excellent conversation. What you got coming this week?
I'm like you. I'm going to add to the repetitions. So
time in the game.
That's it. I have some film projects that I'm ready to work on. Just some film projects. So that's what I'm going to get into now that class is over. That's what we're doing.
Excited to see your work soon, my friend. Excited.
I appreciate it. I'm excited to put it out there. Well, appreciate you all for listening in here today on another episode of Creative Journey. Hopefully, we brought some value to you, made you think about education and your journey, gaining knowledge and information. Makes a little bit more sense for you. So, in the meantime, we look forward to seeing you on the next episode here on Creative Journey, and y'all go out there and have fun.
Peace.